Hello, thank you so much to Barbara for this opportunity, which really for me has become a chance not only to share some Torah, but really to learn for the first time about ORT and your incredible history and all the inspiring work you're doing today. So thank you for that, and in particular for asking me to speak at this specific meeting, because this week's Torah portion is actually the perfect one for ORT, with your history in trade education and your future in STEAM, because it is the part of the Torah that most elevates and celebrates the work of those who are skilled in technical and artistic endeavors. So what do I mean by this? This week's Parsha, Tetzavah, is basically a long and very detailed description of all the beautiful garments that the priests are supposed to wear when they officiate rituals on behalf of the Jewish people. The text does not simply describe these garments, maybe to make it possible for us to picture them or take inspiration from their beauty. In fact, it goes beyond that to clearly explain that God revealed all the minute details of these clothing in order that Moses would have the ability to pass those details along to the artisans who make the garments. So the Parsha begins by saying, in Exodus 28:3, Ve'ata tedaber el kol chochmei lev, asher miletiv ruach chochma v'asu et bigdei Aharon. You, Moses, you should speak to all those who are skillful, whom I have endowed with the gift of skill, and tell them to make these garments as follows. So for those readers of the text who have assumed that there are no extraneous details in the Torah, this verse has been read for many, many years, for hundreds of years, as an indication of the indispensable value of those with artistic and technical skill, because the text goes out of its way when it didn't need to tell us that, to emphasize that they are crucial and the importance of their role. However, for me, my assumption is that the text mentions these artisans not only to remind us that they and people like them are important, which is of course true, but in fact, because there's something that we can derive in terms of meaning or inspiration, something we're meant to learn for our lives about them and their work. So what is it exactly that we're supposed to learn from these skillful people, both in general and particularly for you as people who are engaged in the crucial work of bringing cutting-edge education to Jews all over the world? So first, to take a closer look at the language of the verse itself, which in describing these people, I previously translated as, quote, those who are skillful, whom I have endowed with the gift of skill. The words literally read, those who are wise of heart, whom I have filled with a spirit of wisdom. So in order to understand these words, it's crucial to know that in the biblical worldview, the heart is understood not to be the seat of emotion, as we often think of it today, but as the seat of the intellect. So in the biblical world, the language of calling something wise of heart suggests that the people who we're talking about with their great technical and artistic prowess are not simply skillful or intelligent, which we would have expected the Bible to call having a good heart, right? The same way today we might say someone has a good head on their shoulders. But because we're told they're wise of heart, we learn that they're not just smart, they're actually wise-minded. In other words, they use their intelligence and their skill in wise and discerning ways. According to the 13th century Spanish biblical commentary of Rabbi Bechia, this implies that these folks not only have the ability to make beautiful and useful things, but they have the wisdom and the discipline to really understand and stay focused on the purpose of making these beautiful and useful things. So it seems to me that the first lesson here for us is that it's not enough in your education efforts to foster students who are smart and who know a lot of things, but that you must continue to work, as I know you do, to build schools and programs which nourish students who are wise, who apply their smarts and the information that you've given them to making the world a better place, right? In the same way that these artisans have used their skills to make it a holier place. The second thing that I want to point out is the number of commentaries notice the strange, seemingly redundant double phrase in what I've highlighted, right? Why does the text describe these people as both wise-minded and then immediately says they are those who God has filled with wisdom, right? It seems like both of those descriptions are getting at the same idea. My favorite answer to this so-called problem is that, in fact, these two pieces are not redundant, but they're actually two different independent and also very much interdependent processes, right? Both phrases are included to let us know that the people here that we're holding up as role models are wise enough already from the beginning, wise enough in and of themselves in order for them to make themselves receptive to the gift of divine wisdom. So in the words of the Midrash Lekach Tov, which is an 11th century commentary, Minhago sha'olam kli rekam machzik, v'kli maleh eno machzik, aval mi she'amar b'ha'olam, kli maleh machzik, v'kli rekam eno machzik. The normal physical way of the world is for an empty vessel to have the ability to hold things, and a full vessel can't hold anything. In other words, it's already full, it can't hold anything additional. However, for the one who speaks the world into being, i.e. for God, a full vessel has the potential to hold, and an empty vessel does not. So I think this Midrash has a crucial message for us as people who are engaged in the work of education. In the world of education theory, there's been a debate for about 300 years between what we call the traditionalists and the progressivists. And it basically boils down to the question of whether you see your students as empty vessels who need to be filled up with knowledge, or full vessels who sort of already know what they need to know, and you just kind of guide them about how to use it. So to me, this Midrash offers a beautiful view of God as educator, articulating something that is both sort of in between those two positions and actually loftier than either of them. The Midrash is telling us your students are already full. You have to build schools and educational programs which see and respect the fullness that is already there. And you have to understand that not in spite, but actually because of this fullness, your students need to receive from you the skills and the knowledge which you can impart to them. And you would be leaving them short if you wouldn't give them any of that new content. So the Talmud in Kiddushin tells us that a person who teaches a child Torah gives them life. And this is frankly not all that surprising because the rabbis who wrote the Talmud really love Torah. But what does surprise me is that they say in the exact same place, the exact same thing about a person who teaches a child the skills that will make it possible for them to launch a career. Right? That also is giving life. And it puts these two things, right, the teaching of Jewish content of Torah and the teaching of general knowledge on the same list, which is the list of the religious obligations that a parent has to their child or that the community at large actually has to Jewish. And it seems to me that this is exactly what you do, right? You bring both the best of secular education and the richness of Jewish identity to Jewish children all over the world. So I can only end by reminding you that this isn't just your work, but it is actually a sacred religious trust with which you have been charged, and offering you my blessing that you will always continue to do this work, not only skillfully, as I know you do, but with wisdom as the Torah demands. Thank you so much for all of your work, and may it only go from strength to strength.